We finally got our first glimpse at Metro 2039, and like the original author of the series has said in his recent tweets, this certainly looks to be one of the darkest Metro games to date, exploring topics that might see some horrifying endings and be extremely mature in themes. I went through the trailer multiple times and I was lucky enough to get eyes on it early, and whilst at first I made a big video about the lore you need to know for this game, I had to delete that because I found out that the game isn't actually focused on Artyom at all. Instead, this is a story of a man simply named The Stranger, who, for the first time in Metro's mainline game history, apart from the DLCs, they will be a fully voiced protagonist. So let's go through the game trailer together, pick out some points that might be relevant going forward, and also speculate on what it all means. This is my analysis of the first trailer for Metro 2039. We start our trailer with a speaker of the new rule that is happening down within the Metro. This voice goes on to say, "Are you ready to come out of the darkness and become a pure nation?" Then suddenly, we are hit by a completely destroyed village with a child's toy front and center. Spoiling things that get announced a bit later in the trailer, but this voice is coming from the brand new faction of the Nowa Reich, a hybrid faction that is said to have been brought together with all of the other factions living down within the Metro. What I find interesting about this is that it is set within Moscow and 3 to 4 years after Artyom's escape. During that time that Artyom was living within the Metro, it was under the secretive rule of the Invisible Watchers, a faction that was ultimately made from the remnants of the Russian government, and under their rule, they basically constructed everything. All of the factions from the Reds to the Fourth Reich to the Hansa and even the Order of Spartans were under their guidance, and they told them what to ultimately do. The idea was to basically control the people of the Metro, form wars to keep everyone in check, and make sure population numbers were controlled, and to most importantly, to make sure everyone stayed down within the Metro, because in the Invisible Watchers' eyes, at least shown in Metro Exodus anyway, they still believed that they were at war with other nations. And because of that, they had to shield everyone from outside signals, and with it, signal jammers were set up everywhere. The truth of the matter is, the world was still out there, and it hadn't ended in 2013, and that is why Artyom kept having visions of a green land somewhere out there in the world, somewhere he and Anna could live finally in peace and have a nice peaceful family away from radiation and the horrors of war and the claustrophobic tunnels. I find it interesting that he uses the word nation within this reveal, making it seem like he wants the whole country of Russia to unite once again, maybe a little dig at how Putin is trying to capture as much land as he wants, believing it's still USSR territory. This could be overthinking it, but maybe the Nowa Reich became aware of how Artyom escaped and realized for themselves that there was more out there. However, that wouldn't really fit the themes of it being there is only Metro and nothing else. To me, it seems like the Invisible Watchers only upped their efforts and transformed them into something far stricter to make sure no one was ever to leave again. And this is what they were talking about when they talk about nation. The nation down in the metros, one where people seeking life outside of it are eradicated and only those who seek the comfort of the tunnels can be permitted into it. One thing that I also find extremely interesting during this is the fact that when he talks about a pure nation, we see a village on the surface burning and children's bodies everywhere. We don't know exactly where this location is, but maybe it's a sign that the Nowa Reich faction is taking things that step further. They aren't just sticking to their lie of keeping people down in the metro and putting up signal jammers to make it seem like nothing is out there on the surface. I think they are instead venturing up to the surface and eradicating everything living up there to make sure that the lie of there is only Metro actually becomes real, as well as something else that I will explore later in this video. It wouldn't be crazy to think that, as we already saw a brief glimpse of this at the start of Metro Exodus when the Hansa troops looking like Spartan Rangers go on to shoot 2 people who lived outside of the city to keep them quiet, as well as Artyom, who had discovered all of it. So for the Reich to now go outside of Metro itself to eradicate villages, I don't think is too much of an assumption. Which brings about my next point, which links to who we see next in the trailer. After witnessing the terrifying sight of multiple children lying on the floor lifeless with fire all around, we then see one boy, a similar looking boy to one that Artyom saw in his nightmares during the Metro Exodus trailer. At least I thought he looked similar anyway. This boy then looks directly to the player upon hearing, or speaking, wake up. At first, upon witnessing this, I genuinely thought this was Artyom's nightmare once again, and he was looking into a grim future for all of mankind living on the surface. But in fact, it seems it is another Spartan Ranger who is experiencing these nightmares or visions into the future. What I find very interesting about this is that, for one, he is a Spartan Ranger, one of the order that Artyom was a part of. We don't know if he is part of the Aurora crew during the events of Exodus, but we do know that he hasn't been within the Metro for a long time. That would imply to me that he must have either broken away after Artyom left for the surface after hearing about what he had discovered, or he was indeed part of the Aurora crew, and we will be following his story in a similar way to how we did with Sam and Colonel Miller. Which, if this is true, begs the question, who are these children that he is having nightmares about? Is this just a nightmare about humanity's future and the children all dead on the floor is just a bit of symbolism to show the death of innocence? Or is this the settlement that Artyom and his crew have created now that they are in some safe land? We already know that there are a few children within the crew already. We also have multiple relationships in the crew, and even Artyom and Anna speak multiple times in the books and in Metro Exodus about wanting a family, but only when they are in a safe location and they can grow up without any radiation-caused disabilities. If this is the case, then maybe it could be that the Nova Reich has tracked down their settlement and purified it for good, and with it the children as well, capturing some to take back to the Metro. With that said, as we go back to the trailer, we notice that these visions of the children seem to be haunting him endlessly, and every time he goes to try and save them or pick up something of theirs, chains are seen and he is pulled back to the dark place he wants to avoid, that being the Metro. But now, falling back into the extremely dark and gritty Metro, we finally get to witness this new faction of the Nova Reich, as well as the beautiful piece of symbolism of everyone tied in chains being forced back into the Metro. That, or the Reich really do use chains to keep everyone in check, and maybe these children walking into the Metro are actually from the surface that they are grabbing, stripping them from their freedom and forcing them into being a part of the new pure nation, to most likely use as soldiers for their future conflicts. And it's definitely that they're outside going into the Metro, because there's the train making it look like it's a surface. It's also a park with loads of play equipment as well, so it's most likely the surface. Can't be guaranteed, but it does look like it's going to be on the surface. It should be of note that it is only children who are shown. There are no adults apart from the Nova Reich soldiers, so this is definitely the plan of the Nova Reich to capture as many children as possible, bring them into the Metro if they are outside of it, or bring them into the faction through brutal means. This isn't a choice at all. They are to be a part of whatever their plans are, which I'll explore in a minute. That, or this is just how the Stranger views these series of events anyway. Clearly there is a trauma event that brings it all down to this, and he is only seeing the children being taken. It could be that adults are also forced into this new military faction, but he is so focused on saving the children, and that might be due to something that either he did in his past or something he witnessed happen to him and maybe one of his own children. Regardless, he once again goes to reach out for a girl's hand, and we get a flash of the little one once again. Clearly this boy has some meaning as to why he is doing all of this, but that is until once again, like with before, the Stranger is grabbed by the chains and brought back to yet another, even darker part of the Metro tunnels. In this part, however, we hear a vital piece of information about who our new antagonist is. The Führer Hunter protects you. This was a mind-blowing moment for me when I heard this, because we haven't heard about Hunter since the 2033 game, where he disappeared to fight the Dark Ones and set us off on the original quest. We see ethereal shots of him in Artyom's mind, but it made it seem like he had died in the Metros trying to fight them. However, in the books, specifically 2034, this is all about him. This book shows how he dealt with life after witnessing the Dark Ones, and goes on to show how destroyed of a human he had become. Ultimately, the Dark Ones had shown him who he truly was, a horrible, deadly man that had a real bloodlust, and now with them gone, he had become that person, extremely cruel, capable of horrific atrocities, and was riddled with scars on his face. I find it very intriguing that they made Hunter the new big bad guy, and it's quite fitting. He is not a nice character despite having that close relationship with Artyom, but he always lived by the motto of, if it's hostile, kill it. And it certainly seems to be the motto that is being used by the Nova Reich, and that makes it even more terrifying. Because what do the Novorite deem as hostile? Is it anyone that goes against their rule? Is it people that look a specific way? Or is it people who live out on the surface? I cannot wait to see what they do with Hunter, and part of me thinks that they will be utilizing elements of 2034, the book, to help tell his story, or at least use it as a reference point to show what he's truly capable of, because he is absolutely not a nice person at all. Our stranger then goes and witnesses a mysterious individual with chains all around her, and we finally hear the stranger's voice asking, where are they taking them? This voice is clearly a much older individual, which we can also gather from the fact that without his mask, he has extremely grey hair, but maybe that's due to stress. He then says, can you hear me? Which is a sort of odd question to ask, but that's when this mysterious lady responds with, they do. They hear everything, but you don't let them speak, which is an extremely cryptic response and makes me wonder if she's talking about herself and she is a strange anomaly or amalgamation of spirits from within the metro, which would explain why there are so many chains attached to her, almost as if she has been tied down here for many years, especially as her backdrop is of the same house we witnessed with the fire and the children. Or it could be talking about the children within the metro, as she holds closely the very same picture he tried to pick up before of the children. There's also another reason that I'll explain in a bit, but it's too big of a spoiler currently, so I'll save it for later. He then immediately, with panic, states, no, 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 it's not about me. And then suddenly, the woman turns hostile with the chains, looking like they're about to attack, as she states, it's all about you. And then something that I can't quite work out, which I like to take a bet that it's a name, simply because it then cuts very quickly to a shot of yet another body on the floor, this time of the young ginger-haired girl who pulled him into the metro at the beginning. This clearly has some meaning for the stranger, as he quickly pulls his gun and shoots at this mysterious lady, who I will also note has a similar looking red bandana to another mysterious and creepy friend, Mr. Khan. I'm not saying she is him, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is all linked to spirits and maybe the souls of these specific kids who are trying to reach out to him regarding something. With that gun firing, we then see tons of children's drawings fall from the top of the metro tunnel, and some recognizable but different metro music comes on, which feels very ethereal to me. Whether that's intentional or not, I'm not sure, but that's what it sounds like to me anyway. But this time, that same drawing as before has changed, and the children within it are on fire and their eyes are burning, almost as if the closer he gets to an answer, the more these visions are becoming real, or the more his past is coming to haunt him. It's then that we suddenly see the whole of Moscow go up in flames thanks to the Great War of 2013, which I find very interesting because maybe he was around during the time of this happening. We know that Colonel Miller was alive during it, as well as Sam, so it's most likely, especially looking at his age, that maybe he witnessed the nukes going off before, setting up all of new life down within the metro. Or this could be another bit of symbolism, and this moment here is a revelation moment where his whole world comes burning down. I find it interesting that it comes straight after the image of the children dying in fire, so it might just resemble the end of his world. That, or it could be a moment like in Metro Last Light where Artyom witnesses a plane in the sky during the bombs going off and it plummeting to the ground. We don't know how bad these nightmares are for this individual, but they might be showing him glimpses of what humanity was like before the bombs and how it's been destroyed now. That certainly seems plausible because as soon as the bomb has swept past him, we see a Novorite school in the ruins of Moscow with perfectly uniformed desks and school kids all doing the exact same thing and wearing the uniform, stating, the Mother Reich is our home, either we destroy or we are destroyed, all apart from one girl, the red-headed girl from before, who is standing out like that girl in red in Schindler's List, which I'm not sure if that's a coincidence, but certainly is fitting and works extremely well, especially as this little girl's dress is red as well. Unlike the others, the girl is drawing yet another picture, almost as if she's been the one trying to communicate with him all of the time. Going up to her, we witness that she has numbers on her back, as if she is being catalogued, which really makes me believe that these children are being rounded up from outside of the metro and labelled with numbers, similar to what the Nazis did with the Jewish, Gypsy, disabled populations, as well as people they deemed unsavoury. Maybe those who are from the surface are given numbers and put to one side compared to those living in the metro who were just put into the Novorite army. Getting right behind her, we hear her speaking the same as everyone else and sees the picture once again, but this time all of the children are now dead, like at the very beginning, and now turning around, the girl is completely faceless and has started to become like all of the other Novorite children, stating, the enemy must be destroyed, triggering all the others to join in. As the children's faces start to bleed almost as if the crosses on the picture are causing it to happen, we witness another horror just behind of the stranger. As to my absolute delight, but maybe not his, the Dark Ones have returned and look absolutely horrifying in their new design, actually looking like they have gas masks that have almost melted onto their skin and is part of their overall design. It's never really sure where the Dark Ones actually come from, so maybe this is an insight into what they actually are. Maybe they are humans after all and have been subjected to many experiments before the war and have just mutated over the years. Regardless, they appear to be attacking the stranger with their telepathic abilities, majorly hurting him in the process and eventually leading to him to amazingly break free from their control and fire on them. But before we talk about the next moment, I think this is a major point that gives us a major insight into what exactly is happening here. Whilst it seems like in this moment the Dark Ones are a deadly force and are trying to hurt him, especially as they seem to be chanting the exact same thing as the Netherite children of "the enemy must be destroyed," I think they are actually the ones trying to reach out to the stranger to help them fight back against the Netherite and Hunter. I believe this because we see a brief glimpse of the Dark Ones in the picture of the children standing by their house before any fire or anything like that, and actually look like they are living in a nice community together. We then also see the creepy lady standing in the same sort of location by the remnants of the burnt house with the Dark Ones behind her, and as you remember, she said they hear everything, but you don't let them speak, and maybe that is meaning the Dark Ones. We know from Artyom's experience that the Dark Ones are actually peaceful species. They never wanted to harm humanity, but because of the way they communicate with telepathy, it drives humanity mad, believing that monsters are attacking when actually it's just their best friend. Because of this, they made a connection with Artyom when he was a child, and after last night said to him that one day they will return, but only when humanity is ready for them. Hunter absolutely hated the Dark Ones and did everything to try and stop them from taking over. If it's true that Artyom had now united the Dark Ones with humanity in these new green lands he found in Exodus, as maybe these children's drawings imply, then if Hunter heard of that, I know full well he would do anything to shut that down regardless of what it took. Remember, he is bloodthirsty and does not care about how he does a task. If it's hostile, kill it. And that is what looks like has happened, or at least he tried to do. From this moment here, it looks on the surface that the Dark Ones are helping the Netherite and are fighting the stranger, but I think that's just his point of view. In reality, they are doing what they did to Artyom in 2033. They just want to reach out and be peaceful and find a way to fight against a common enemy. The enemy must be destroyed. That enemy being Führer Hunter and his Netherite, who are on a mission to eradicate the Dark Ones and their new communities. But because the stranger is just a man, their messaging is not coming through, and like the lady says, you don't let them speak. That's or he just doesn't want to hear them because he's too terrified of what these creatures are. We then see the heartbreaking moment where the stranger breaks from their control amazingly and fires on them, but to his horror realizes that it is not these monsters he's fired upon, and in fact a little boy who dies in his arm. Again, I think this moment is crucial and might even explain who the stranger is as well. Clearly this was a moment in time that he was at, and it might have actually been him who caused all of this, or at least a part of a team behind it. Maybe he was actually a member of the Order down in the metro after Artyom left, and they had new orders to go to the surface and shut down specific things going on. That, or they came upon a community who were just living, but the Dark One presence there confused them and drove the soldiers mad, causing an event like we saw at the start of Metro Last Light, where just them being there made the soldiers kill one another. It could have even been that they wanted to join this community, but couldn't process the Dark Ones at all, and that's what drove them mad. Maybe Artyom did have a part in trying to unite humanity and Dark Ones together, and this was the result, causing this stranger right here to lose his sanity, kill innocent children, and roam the world looking for answers. However, that still wouldn't explain why he'd venture back down to the metro, so it's still a little up in the air for me. But I do think this story is going to revolve around this moment right here, the Dark Ones being with the children, and how the Netherite seem to be trying to stop that by capturing them for their own purposes. It's very child specific, and we know know that when Artyom was a child, the Dark Ones were able to link with him so that he could communicate with them later in life. Maybe that's why these child communities had Dark Ones and why they were specifically targeted, and why Hunter is capturing them to bring them down to the Metro to take them away from the Dark Ones. But after an absolutely heartbreaking scream, we finally get the stranger in the place where it all began, back on the surface of Moscow, ready to venture down again and look for the answers he needs, but looking like he is endlessly troubled by that event, still looking at the drawing of the children during a much happier time this time. We then end the trailer with the speaker, with the classic wide open shot of the devastated cityscape stating,
"Your nation, clean air, bright future. The Novo Reich is our home."
which I felt is quite fitting to put over this specific shot because it clearly shows it's just propaganda, because there's definitely no clean air or a bright future. It's just destruction and nothing will ever change that. It's just the same speech once again to keep people down within the Metro. But with that, the trailer comes to an end, and what a fantastic trailer it was. Honestly, I was gripped from start to finish with it, and I'm so incredibly excited to get going with it whenever it comes out. To summarize what I think of the trailer, I think it painted the story pretty well, and I honestly believe it's somewhat like a reimagining of 2033 to some extent. It's looking at this new character of the stranger to help that message from the Dark Ones to be harder to see. If it was Artyom, he would be able to decipher it and follow their messaging, but with the stranger, it looks like he is believing it will be the other way around, and maybe even fall for the lies of the Novo Reich and Führer Hunter that these are the enemy and need to be destroyed, which has led to these events where children have been brutally killed and captured to be placed into Hunter's own military. I love the Dark Ones and so happy to see them back once again and looking like they will be that terrifying force that we saw in the first game. I'm extremely intrigued to also see how they are going to portray Hunter and what angle this is all going to take, but to have both Hunter and the Dark Ones in it again says to me that there will be a war between the two and we will be at the forefront of it. I also hope to see a lot of paranormal elements as well, and I think we will, especially as that lady gave us a brief insight into the more creepy elements of the Metro tunnels, and I do not think that bandana is a coincidence, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. I will end on my final theory about who I actually think the stranger is, with all things considered. With all of what we've seen here and the talk of Dark Ones living outside and so much more, there is a feeling inside me that Hunter is actually our protagonist as well as our antagonist. There's a lot of moments that made me feel that way. For starters, we always heard that Hunter was the strongest Spartan Ranger in the Order. He was built like a bear and was the only one of the Order to be allowed outside on the surface on his own until Artyom came along. That certainly seems to tick that box. The age also makes a lot of sense, and the hair is also the same style as it was in 2033. Then we have the fact that we don't know where he went after the events of the Dark Ones, and you could also argue where he went after his story in 2034. I know he's said to have gone back to the station he lived within and stayed there with the old man of Homer, but 5 years have passed since then and a lot might have changed. There's also the old lady. She seems to be this oracle or paranormal being that knows what's going on and who he truly is. I mean, she clearly sees the Dark Ones and knows of their presence, and the burnt house in the background clearly can't be really there and must be a vision into his own psyche. I find it interesting that it's within this moment, right in the darkest part of the Metro tunnel, almost like it's the darkest part of his subconscious, that we hear Führer Hunter protects us. Yes, it could just be giving us an insight into who it is we are fighting as a regular Spartan Ranger, but I find it too coincidental. He also kills the lady without hesitation, something that I don't think many people would really do. We know Hunter is pretty horrific when it comes to violence, and this seems like a major overreaction to just immediately killing her, even if she is trying to trigger him. But then there's just the way he sees the Dark Ones. They are looking terrifying. In his mind, they are trying to kill him and everything around him, and are ultimately portrayed as those terrifying monsters he spoke about with Artyom and Sukhoi back in 2033. The fact that he immediately goes to shoot them feels almost similar to how he dealt with things back in 2033 as well. So with all of that, it would honestly make sense that it is Hunter who is the stranger. He's going back to the tunnels where he disappeared all of those years ago and is trying to seek answers for the Dark Ones once again. The only thing that's a little confusing is, who are the Novo Reich ruled by then? Is this really a Fight Club Tyler Durden scenario where he's been driven mad by the Dark Ones and all that has happened around him, and now he's got two shared personalities? Or is there a sort of Bioshock Infinite thing going on where it's the same person but two time periods? That would make no sense at all because we haven't seen any of that stuff in Metro before, so to suddenly spring that on would be very odd. I'd love to believe that this stranger is Hunter because there are so many signs pointing to him, but it's just that bit about the Nova Reich that is raising a lot of questions. But that said, I'm sure that is the whole point of the main campaign, and it's trying to work out the stranger's mind and how it all links to these events. But that's all I can think of for now. I just love what they've done so far, and the gameplay stuff also looked good, although it's very minimal at the moment. It felt very close to the opening level in Metro Exodus and showed off their new engine, which does look pretty beautiful as well. But what did you think of the trailer? Any points you think I missed, got right or got wrong? Let me know in the comments below. A massive thank you for watching this video. I loved making it, and a big thanks to Deep Silver and 4A Games for allowing me to witness it early. I cannot thank you all enough for bringing me into this game's universe and allowing me to be a real part of it and its lore. Also, of course, a big thanks to my patrons for their endless support, including my small fishes, my big fishes, Anthony Bonfiglio and This Mind of Mine, my YouTube channel Wise1, Sith Lord 906, Video Gamer 75, Kosh1516, the Nanontarium and V3XXE, my sharks Dan F and Lorena R, and my Megalodons Sinus and Hazy Thoughts. But that is all for now. Keep your eyes out for more Metro content with every bit of information we get, and also check out my Metro playlist for more lore videos. And with all of that said, I shall see you all in the next one. Cheers.